Good day, everyone. This is Gian. Welcome to another hangout on community living. And today's topic is hippie communities with Talamon. Hi, Talamon.
Hey Gian, hey everyone. I'm happy to be here. I am Earth Haven Patreon, and since the beginning I'm supporting Patreon through Earth Haven through Patreon, and also I personally know Gian, and just recently visited Panama, and we had a lot of talks, and I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm very happy to have you here too, Talamon. And soon we will make our own communities. But for today, let's talk about your experiences with what you have lived in your life and seen in your life. Because, man, if you hear Talamon's stories, you're going to be mind blown. So today he's just going to share with us some experiences he had with visiting hippie communities and what it is he wants to share with us about these communities from his observation and participation within it. Now, Talamon, I'm going to give you the floor here. So you can start with where you feel like you want to start with this, give people information, share with them your perspectives, and let's broaden the perspective people have of community living.
Oh, perfect. So I throw in a little bit of life story of mine. I was born in Hungary, and I'm Hungarian, and I grew up in a tiny village. It was like 300 inhabitants, and surrounded by nature, forest, lakes, fields, and hills and rivers. It's like beautiful. And I spent quite a lot of time exploring nature, being in nature, understanding nature. That was my childhood. And although I got fascinated by computers pretty early, so I learned computer programming, and that have became my profession later on. And then basically I finished as programming mathematics, and I went into these kind of jobs. So there was a bit of disconnect from my side with nature for a while, when I kind of got lost in the system, because basically I had to make my own living, and then the programming work is like you have to go to the office every day, and only big cities used to have these kind of jobs back then. It was around 2000 when I finished, and yeah, I moved to Budapest. I moved into the city, and it was kind of depressing in a way, because I grew up in nature, and every day I went out to just touching the trees. Okay, they are still here. I am still here. So I had to go through this kind of phase, and I never really talked about this, but it touched me so much that it made me wobble inside a bit, and I got lost, and I went into kind of drinking, university style, you know, like college parties, insane amount of crazy you face. And yeah, I was drinking a lot. And then after university, I was into some shady looking long-haired friends appeared with weed. And then I was like, wow, what's this? And this thing you do, and then you feel more strange. And I was like, all right, I want to try, but I was so afraid as well. And then first time I tried this stuff, I was blown away. I was like paranoid, like now the police will like bust me, I'm going to jail. So all kind of things came up in my mind. And already I was kind of investigating how I could be better, because I faced with my own limitations many times. And I wanted to do something more with my life. And I had a brilliant wife in that time, girlfriend, who really supported me. She gave me books of psychology, and she wanted me to expand. And I found this kind of world, what I saw as an opportunity for me to understand more, to spend time with these people who are not living in the system, who are kind of like fringe people, like how can I say, who are like rejected in the system in a way. Yeah. And then I spent more time with them, and they knew things, and they knew understanding you don't hear with your usual office colleagues. So I was kind of interested, and I spent more and more time with these people, and then I got introduced to more serious drugs in terms of psychedelic drugs, not just like smoking weed and then looking at video clips, but like acid and mushroom, and that made me connect with music. First time in my life, really deeply, and I got to know a lot of musicians who were in this kind of like a garage style of places where I got to touch synth and drums. So I went to these drum circles, and then I got connected with hippies basically. And I used to have long hair in that time, but after I went to office life, I cut my hair. So I didn't have the long hair anymore. And first appealed to me that it is kind of irrelevant. It's like not like you are showing your CV in the office, but you're showing yourself. And if you're like a Rasta with the ragtag clothes, people are like, "Hey, brother," immediately like recognizing you that you are not like a policeman, for instance. Because I have a certain type of character and face, and sometimes people looked at me as a policeman because I didn't have the long rasta hair, like who is this guy? Like standing in a circle. So it's just kind of funny that this is massive police. So I enjoyed these kind of explorations, and then I went, so to speak, deeper and deeper, and I started to travel with some of these dudes and dudettes, and I got introduced to communities. So I
What?
traveled
Sorry, the what communities?
it's called comuna.
Komhuna.
Yeah, it's like community in my language. Comuna, it's called,
Ah,
which is like also um, showing that the meaning is like sort of not socialism, but it's like more like not capitalism. It's a weird thing to say because in Hungary was communism, but it's something different. It's like the kibbutz in Israel, or I don't know, stuff like that. And I was invited to visit some of these places because I knew people, and in that time it was not known in the world. There was like no Facebook to see like hippies around, because hippies were always like rejecting technology, rejecting taking photos, like the Indian people, like stealing your soul type of
mm,
stuff.
yeah.
So you didn't find that back then online. So only was spreading through like verbally. Like if you know someone who knew someone, then they would tell, if you are a nice person, where is this community? So then that's how we went to, for instance, Sicily. And then we visited this community where people were like just finding a place in the nature, abandoned, like a neighborhood type of village stuff, a farmland basically. And it was like, okay, let's occupy this. And they started to live there. And then after a certain amount of time, if no one claims the place, then it's yours. So this is, I'm not sure right now it is still the thing in Europe, but it used to be. So people were like occupying places, and then they started to do gardening. And for me, it was really mind-blowing, because first time after doing this kind of office works, I got reconnected with nature again. So then working on the fields, but basically not fields, gardens.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah,
So you have, let's say, on your first visit to one of these communities,
yeah.
did you visit for a day? Did you visit for a week? And how did you get involved in working in the fields with them? Like, did you go every day from the office to the field, or how did you get to interact with this community?
Yeah, so usually when I started to do this, I kind of fed up with my office job, burned out, so to speak, and I just went to travel. Like, okay, between two jobs, or even sometimes happened that I was still like, what's the word? Like employed, you are. And you go to a vacation, and then
Right.
what happened was that the company goes bankrupt, and they basically don't reopen. And I am in a community far away, and I see the message. Okay, my job is gone. So okay, this won't be a 2 week, I guess, but can be like 2 months, or we'll see. So usually naturally expanded that I can spend more time around the communities.
So
And
how did it work when this first time happened? Did you sleep there? Did they provide you with a room? Did they give you
yeah,
food?
yeah. So
Did you have to pay?
usually I visited these kind of communities which sort of inherit the style from Rainbow, which is like the Rainbow gatherings, which means that there was a Woodstock festival in 70s or 60s. And then
Yeah,
there was this kind of movement that everyone is equal and fuck the system, and we want to live free, and we want to support each other, and we are equals, and we want to be whoever we are without any masks, any stuff. So these kind of communities are like putting out the rainbow flag, and then that means that everyone is welcome, and everyone gets fed, and everyone gets a bed, if like they provide you everything, and they don't ask you to work. But if these are like a permanent style of communities, then it's obviously you should participate. And then
yeah, but my thing is like from that it sounds like I can just walk in and live and food is provided and stuff, but they must have gotten money from somewhere.
yeah, so these things at least used to be like there was like no exact rules that like there is no downloadable PDF of the exact principles and points you apply. So each place was a bit different, like how the founders realized that this is we like it, and then this is what we would like newcomers to kind of align to. And but because of that, we knew the lady who I used to live with, and then she spent time there, and they said that this lady we trust, so whoever she sends we also trust. So it was really like a person known based of type of trust was given. But often can happen that someone is abusing that kind of trust, and basically what you explained, that someone just goes there and lays down and like, I want food and fed me, I'm the king now. They will be kicked out soon, of course. But because of hippies usually apply to anarchism, which is like a self-organizing thing, like nature, that people should take responsibilities. But sometimes it doesn't happen, sometimes happens. Because, for instance, my favorite thing is still remains the Rainbow Gathering, which is a thing like they it's like a festival, and it only lasts for 1 month. So we just find a place and we organize, and then a lot of people come. We build this kind of village in the nature, and we celebrate life, and we share with each other, and then we break camp, and then we make the nature as it was, like no harm done, and then we are going away. And a lot of people are living like this. So from Rainbow Gathering in Europe, they go to Asia, and then from the States, and many people live like that all the time.
So these rainbow gatherings, is that how they brought in funding?
And then funding is that some people are working in the system, and then for these gatherings they visit, basically like a campsite, and they bring the kids, like relax and I don't know, enjoy nature and each other. And some people are like travelers, like they they just take jobs on the way, on the road. Some are like jugglers, musicians, doing street busking type of things, or making jewelry and then selling on the street, selling festivals, or doing yoga, or these
So
kind of
you're
things.
saying you're saying people that wanted to be free from the system still needed the system to be free from the system because they needed
Yeah,
money, selling jewelry, and they needed other people to remain in the system so that they can be out of the system.
yeah, it can be contradictory because even if you grow your own vegetable, you still need quality metal tools, for instance. So then there was this kind of thing in Sicily that we had to buy the grain, and then we were like grinding it for making our own bread. But for the machine, the guy from Texas, for instance, went to the town and he was playing harmonica and singing stupid Texas songs for like 3 hours. And then he got the money and then he bought the machine. So yeah, this is a thing that there are self-sustaining communities, but of course, self-sustainability is kind of a debatable point in this world. And many thrive to expand this point. Some people are just like not caring much. Like okay, yeah, I'm basking on the street. I'm a musician, and I need money for surviving, and they don't think about it much. So yeah, this can also happen.
That's a strange movement that's in the world where people think they can be self-sustaining, because if you want to be self-sustaining, you're literally sucking things out of the system, like getting solar panels, getting the wood, getting the tools, getting everything from the system that you think you're separating from. But you're literally using everything from the system. And this is one thing that with Earthhaven, our communities, for example, it's not about being self-sustaining and getting away from society. It's to create a community with society, as society is, and to change within that direction, society. Because you're not saying, oh, we're separate, we're self-sustaining. We're saying we're interconnected, and we will always be interconnected. So we need to change together, and we're just creating a community to show an example of how we can live with the system that is here. And I find there's so many gaps in arguments that I have with people, or people communicating with me about they want to go off the grid. And I'm like, but there is no off the grid, because the very solar panels, you need a factory in the system, you need a mining operation in the system. There's so much that you need from the system to be off the grid.
Exactly.
You know, and after 10 years, your solar batteries needs replacement. Your solar panels needs fixing and replacement. You know, you're not producing all of that yourself. So there is no self-sustaining possible if you're looking at it from the point of off the grid and living off and away from society. You're always going to be dependent on each other. So yeah, from your experience and your sharing, I can see how people actually can get trapped in the idea that they're separate, but then they realize they can't be, because they still need money. They still need to sell stuff, make stuff. There's no like, I'm just a wild person in the bush, living with eating the animals and drinking the dirty water from the rivers. Yeah, that's not gonna happen.
Yeah, and then I actually knew guys who went down on this road, not down, that they chose, and they literally look like cavemen. And then yeah, it's okay to use garbage bins to find food, because many do, even in Canary Islands. It's typical. Many friends of mine, they go in the summer and then shops throw away food. Actually, really good food they throw away because the expiration scam, and then they can live on that. But they are still in the interdependent and dependent completely on the system. Yeah, and then some people have really good understanding of this, because yeah, hippies is a huge thing. So it's not like I'm a qualified hippie. I'm not a spokesperson. I'm just like one of the people who visited a couple of times, and then I got involved more because I liked stuff. But at the same time, I'm not living like that all the time, because I'm living in a town now, basically.
So is there anything specific that you want to point out or share about the communities you visited and participated in? Any things you want to bring to people's attention to be aware of? Because, you know, people listening to this, they might be saying, wow, yeah, I want to try hippie living. You know, I want to go and do this now. Let me see if I can go and hike and follow these hippies around, because yeah, it might be cool for some people to do that. But is there certain points that you just want to bring to people's awareness so they can walk with that and direct themselves within that awareness?
Absolutely. For instance, rainbow gathering, it's called rainbow because rainbow represents all the colors in the light, like all the frequencies, all the type of people. and all together we consist of as humankind. That's like the symbol. And if you go to a rainbow gathering, which I highly recommend everyone to do, because there you can bring yourself, your own perspective, your own values, and you can share and you can learn and exchange, because at these gatherings, it can be highly organized because there are like focalizers who take responsible points, and it's quite enjoyable, and they accept who you are. If you don't harm or abuse, even if you are weird, you don't have to put on masks, like society stuff. These kind of things I really love. And I of course, when I visited Destiny Farm 2010, for me, was kind of like an evolved version of the hippies, the Destiny Farm, in this regard that you can be yourself, yet the self-support and the principle structure are more clear. So you don't fall into the mind as much as in the hippie communities, because there are a lot of people are spiritual, like without the quotes. And spirituality for me was an interesting kind of path or aspect of my journey in this life. Yet I am not spiritual anymore, which sounds strange, but I'm not using the constructs or the techniques what spiritual people participate within, because now I utilize words and I work with what's here. Yet I am guardian of nature, and I am representative of Earth still. It's just I am not participating in these kind of spiritual patterns, wherein at rainbow gatherings, one who is like bruised in the system or like harmed or abused, and then goes to a rainbow gathering, it can be very soothing, and then you can go from point A to point B, but you still remain in the mind. I'm not saying all the hippies are like lost in the mind, but it's also a similar way you can fall into your own convictions and belief systems, and then you are not becoming your best potential, so to speak. But of course, at rainbow gatherings, I was talking with people about self-forgiveness, so I can be at Estonian at the rainbow gathering still. So I like that value. And then you can learn a lot of techniques where you can learn how to live in nature, how to peace and how to shit, and how to cook for a lot of people within health and within loving, hugging environment. And one more thing I really want to pronounce is that a lot of stupid people also can go to rainbow gatherings because they have the idea that, okay, we go there because there are like naked women, because hippies can be naked, and then yeah, we go there and a lot of sex will happen. And yeah, people can be naked, but the weird thing what also happened with me in the beginning quite quickly is that when you see people being natural, even naked, you start stopping the sexual thoughts, because you don't need your mind to express yourself or enjoy others, and you stop this all kind of bullshit, these desires, and then the comparison, or who is like attractive or not. And and rainbow is absolutely not about sex. Of course you are free and you can do whatever you want, but I really didn't see much like orgies and sex all around the place, what people believe, because you get more naturalized with the nature and yourself and each other. And it assisted me a lot to let go these stupid things in my head that I find really valuable. However, I kept telling rainbow people that you find a free land and you just throw out a gathering is not going to work. And we see a lot of documentaries now happening that they make the rainbow gatherings and then police comes or someone like law enforcement, and they just kick them out because you made a fireplace. You promised that you don't harm nature, and we see that you made a little hole in the ground. It's a good excuse. So then, or someone smokes a joint, which is illegal. So then the whole commando. It happened in Thailand. It was heaven for us. And then Thai police came with like machine guns and shotguns with shields and stuff like that. And then was like, what the fuck? And people were like, you have to give your passport and stuff like, you are still in the system, even if you go in the forest. So that you need to understand that you need to make a community to be able to put together money and buy a land. And then police will not harass you if you are on your land. And this started to happen, but it's still very slow. And there are like initiatives like the Rainbow Crystal Land or something. They have principles and stuff, but they are not thriving because some people go there and then some people build some stuff. And even Hungary, there is one. Anyone literally can go there. It's on Google Maps. I made the map so anyone can go, but no one is there. Maybe one, two guys live in the bushes, but there is garbage around and land is not taken care of many times because of this anarchism, because people are not focusing on actually supporting themselves and each other like a structured, accumulative way, and that's a problem. So that was my issue with it. That I'm a rainbow guy. If I can go, I still go to these gatherings myself. But I am now looking something more, and that's what I found with the Destiny community when I joined the farm for living 1 month, and I was able to see how this actually works and how it's principled. Yet you can be yourself and you get support also on the financial aspect. And what's happening with Earth Haven right now, you guys started to like bring forward. That's more like my type of vibe.
Yeah, what I see is that through living in a community for 11 years and seeing people coming visiting from all parts of life everywhere in the world, dozens of people over 11 years, and you can see why also to have a structure, because if you want to support someone and you want to see results, you need to have a checkpoint. You need to be able to check in on people. You need to have a structure where you can cross-reference and see, okay, this person is dealing with insecurities. This person is working with certain emotions and feelings. And if they come and you just let them be, it's like, yes, they might be able to deal with some of their stuff because of the environmental change, but no one's checking in. No one is actually make sure that this person is being supported and that they're supporting themselves. So what can happen is, which I see is, if people continue on that path for many, many years, you can become lethargic, you can become demotivated. You can literally just accept that way of life and become lazy. There can be a lot of things that if there's no structure, you can just fall into mind points and the whole thing can just collapse under your feet because there's not some structures to hold something together, right? Now, if you have a empty structure, hollow inside, then everything's just floating around. But you have a structure inside, like a community that has certain checkpoints on each other, which you experience at the Destiny Farm, then that, for myself, my own experience of 11 years, I can see how that's more beneficial than going to a rainbow gathering and starting living in that communities and doing that. But as you say, they are very supportive to deal with your own points, your naked points, sex points, mind points, insecurity, judgments. And I think that's a cool cross-reference for a moment. But then how do you follow through on that to see that it's something lived and taken back to self? Because if you're just going to keep going there to party and party and party and party, that's kind of what the vibe is. It's like a party, right? And then you're going to have police clamping down, you're going to have people arresting you, you're going to have consequences, like not having that structure to move it effectively and reach as many people as possible and to see actual change. Because how long have this community's been here, for 30, 40, 50 years?
Exactly. And a lot of people like having a kids and then they settle back into the system and they are like still hippies and having like long hair, but still like having a job and then blaming the government and stuff like that. So it's kind of proven that this didn't change the world. And we need the next level, like maybe the fusion of the two. or something what really supports life.
Yeah, because nothing is good or bad. It's for me, it's like, how are you approaching it to actually see an impact and that you can measure? You know, and that's what we're doing with Earthing. We create an impact that we can measure and where we can have results. Because you don't want to necessarily change the world, because that might be impossible in your lifetime through such a movement. But you do want to be noticed. You do want to have information spreading around that's constructive and that supports all other people who doesn't have the opportunity to go to a community or experience the community. But you want to have those teachings. You want to have those feedback, the research. You want to have the information out there so people can actually benefit from it even in their own house and not even going to a community. So
Yeah,
that's how I see.
I love
Yeah,
that point, that what you mentioned, that Earth Haven is like you can be part of it even if you are physically not on a community, but you already are supporting and being like a contributor and get support, which is amazing.
yeah, because that's the whole point, is you have to give as you receive. You know, so if, let's say, everyone in the world cannot go and join a community, that's impossible. And a lot of people don't want to join a community. They like their jobs, they like their lives, they like the city life, they like it. But they might also like seeing other people and learning from other people who lives in a community. But if there's no one directing all the information, all the things people are learning, all the things people are going through in a way where that information can reach everyone to learn from, then it's pointless. All you're doing is you're creating more separation and more uh, useless efforts, if you want to call it that. You know, it's
Yeah.
like all the work for nothing.
Yeah, and for instance, I can bring up my own experiences with the Hungarian Rainbow Land, which was like 99. There was a eclipse in Europe. So then there was this kind of big rainbow gathering organized in Hungary. And I was not participant in that time. I was still in high school, but I know people who were there. And then basically they put together money for like 20,000 people kind of gathering. And then they bought a land. It's 10-acre land. And there are like owners, but they are like true hippie warriors. So they are not owning the land. They gave it away. Basically, they legally own, but it's part of the community now. So each year there are like gatherings there. It's like 1 month. And there was a neighbor guy who was not a rainbow person. He was a Waldorf teacher. And he had animals. He had his own art workshop kind of things he was building up. But sometimes happened that all these kind of crazy rainbow people came around and didn't respect the neighbor, because they said that you shouldn't walk naked to these people because he's doing workshop with teachers and kids who are absolutely not in this world. So please respect love the neighbor. And a lot of people didn't give a fuck. So basically they ruined his garden, or ruined his water supply, stuff like that, because people can be dumb shit and they don't give a fuck. And there are welcome centers who introduce you to the rainbow lifestyle and align you, but that's it. Then you are your own. And a lot of people also can lose their mind there, basically because they are like having issues, and there you don't have inhibition. And I saw people get crazy, like mental breakdowns type of stuff. Or I even saw one guy had his lung collapsed, and then people were like, oh, let's circle around him and sing om, so then we can help him. And I was like, he's fucking gonna die. Let's call the chopper ambulance because we need to save his life. And people were like, what? So they were like oming. I was like, okay, I'm gonna turn on my phone, even though it's not legal. Fuck this. I'm gonna call the ambulance. And then the chopper couldn't come because it's 7 p.m. after, but the ambulance came to the forest, and basically they saved his life.
Wow.
But
Yeah, that's a mind fuck there, because
yeah,
that's like when you take things too far where you're not seeing reality anymore. You're living in this other reality where everything is just spiritual. Yeah, like someone could be dying in front of you and you think it's all magical, spiritual. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
dangerous stuff.
Oh yeah, in Thailand, like in jungle, you have this streptococcus, and people were stepping into the jungle's bushes we got prepared before, and then people were stepping into it. They had a lot of wounds, so we told them, "I know barefoot is amazing to walk like, but please wear the sandals because your feet will get wounded, and this kind of wounds will not self heal because of this bacteria, unless you apply hydrogen peroxide." And a lot of people just refused. I am not taking anything. I'm natural child of the world. So I saw one French guy. He was not taking anything for 3 weeks. And the wound was just like growing on his leg. And then eventually they told him, okay, you lose your leg. And then you now have to take antibiotics. He was like, no, I'm not taking antibiotics. And then eventually he was taken to the hospital and he took everything to
Yeah,
support
do
himself.
amputate.
Yeah, like he had to take my antibiotics and then carve out, the wound, like,
Uh,
how this works. Because, yeah, you can be spiritual until a certain level when you face reality, which is not like a la la land. I don't know.
yeah, that's a dangerous thing with communities is you have to have, according to my experience, once again, and to seeing other communities, you have to have the a structure in place that keeps everyone stable. You have to keep things real because we also on the Destiny Forum community in South Africa, we had people losing their minds. We had people going a little bit crazy because they were removed from home. They're still young. They're going through this whole process of change, and the next thing you know, this person is going through some mental breakdown which you couldn't expect. But at least we had a structure in place to physically deal with it and handle it, and quickly before you know it, it is dealt with. Versus going, everything is spiritual, everything is just as it is, just let life be. To a degree, there is a principle in that, but there's also the physical reality we have to bring together, and that's very important.
And also the consequence we are facing now that we've born in the system and like sins of our fathers, we are still carrying. So we are not like, okay, I'm going to take this puff and then I'm free. No, I have to work on myself. And even after being myself, like working, being with hippies for years, yeah, I changed a lot. I became more smooth, but at the same time, with my mind thing, it didn't really help. Even I was in Buddhism so deep and did the mantra. I visited Tibet and stuff like that. It didn't solve my origin problem. For that, I needed to walk. I'm still walking, self-forgiveness and writing and realigning and applying and sounding the words which I'm going to change. But that's like 1,000 times more correct way to deal with myself and the reality as well. And then with that, reflecting back to community living, I find it much more practical because I've been offered to join communities or even start one. Like I didn't like the idea with those persons because they were like reactive, and I really like them. But at the same time, I knew that this wouldn't work because just to put out fairly, they didn't walk the process. So I wouldn't trust them, and I saw that they cannot be trusted with this. So that's why I visited Destiny Farm and I visited Earth Haven to see that how the people are dealing with their own self-dishonesties and how they as support each other with those, because that's the most relevant thing, because once you are with that, then you can work on the community and building. But until that, things will be just get compromised. You are like playing roulette with people's lives.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if we just take it to a smaller scale, to your family, to your friends, you don't necessarily even live together, but look at the conflict, look at the arguments, look at the reactions we have towards each other. Now, if we can't have a tool such as the Destiny tools of self-forgiveness, of writing, of dealing with yourself, of understanding yourself, taking self-responsibility, and stopping yourself, essentially, then all we're going to do is escalate those qualities in ourselves and in others if we bring it into living into a community. And then the principle of the community is getting lost. It's disappearing because you're going to only focus on interpersonal uh, points that people are facing, like, oh, reacting to each other, or who's doing the dishes, why don't you put the toilet seat up, where's the toilet paper, you know, why are you not cleaning behind your ass, why is your bed not made, why are you not parting the veggies, you know. And then it's like, if you're gonna start focusing on that, then the principle or the message of the community gets lost and becomes a basically like a cesspool of just your family problems escalating and not being dealt with.
Yeah, exactly. And also back to the basic aspects of the current human, which is like money and sex. Within these communities, if you didn't deal with your mind, you are not getting support to deal with these points, then you can get fucked easily. Because I saw so many like jealousy spiraling out and basically becoming like gossip, and then people are like, ah, yeah, this like he was my partner, and then the lady was like arguing on the mailing list about, yeah, you took my boyfriend, and then now you fucking bitch, blah blah blah, blah. And everyone was like, oh no, I'm out of here. So this
Yeah.
can also pollute. And the same, it's like a magic hat. Like everyone after the free food in a circle, a song is played, and then people walk around and then throw money into the hat. This works really well if you do a gathering for like 1 month, because there are people who are like loaded and they are like, ah, yeah. And there are people who are like only throwing in their heart, and you see them really working hard, like serving food and stuff like that. So to a certain extent, this works. And then I was also like a wallet guy for a gathering or two. Like I was like responsible for like, okay, what to spend, how to spend, because I seem like a sane guy, not getting high all the time already. Anyway, and then some people can get fucked about this point, like money, because yeah, everyone is like, come on, and then share the money thing. But like some people like to smoke drugs, but that's not common. So then they bring their own money and they buy, of course, like not ice cream, but some little things for themselves. And then basically you end up with like a double layered system that everything is like the basic is common, but then you get like shady, like, okay, yeah, we are sharing our drugs with you, but if we have very little, then we cannot share more, because then we wouldn't have enough until the whole thing. So then it was kind of like a weird circles within the society can appear, that every like it's weird to say, like the Animal Farm from George Orwell, like all animals are equal, but there are more equals. So sometimes I was faced with this, and of course it's not determining anything about this whole movement or type of living. It was just my personal experiences sometimes that reality is more complicated than it seems like, because we are who we are, and we need sex and money and rock and roll, and then we are getting owned by own desires or fears or whatever. So that's why also a good reflection point, that if you are not expecting this to be dealt with and you are not giving this, then things will go into chaos.
Yeah, no, that's definitely, I mean, money and sex, as you say, people get easily possessed by it. And that's why with the tools of destiny, very important is to apply forgiveness on ourselves, to remove any beliefs, ideas, opinions, any energies that we have towards money. Because when it comes to money, people can get real mind fucked, and they can become nasty towards each other, destroy each other. They, when your self-interest takes the interest of all, then there's big problems. And this is why it's important that a community has a principle, a guiding principle, so it doesn't become a personal guidance, but a principle guidance on how everything needs to move and what needs to move. based on the physical, not based on the spiritual feelings and how you feel, You know, there must be, okay, does everyone have food? We have water, the electricity, is the sewage taken care of? Is the buildings maintained? You know, you have to check, okay, this is where our funding goes. And then you need to have individual needs, medical needs, mental needs, disability needs. You have all of those basic needs first. Check, check, check. And then you need to check, okay, next thing, animals, the animals checked, the food checked, the field checked, you know, and then you go up like that. And then you can get to the luxury points last, because that's luxury, that's not living. You know, versus getting drugs first, getting alcohol first, getting all the other things first, and then afterwards having fights because the money is now scarce.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And another thing, just sneaking into my notes, that when I first went to this gathering in Thailand, it was a heaven because it was like on the ocean shore near the jungle, was no road. So we have to like basically climb through rocks, walk a kilometer onto the beach area with the jungle. It's like heaven. And then I was introduced to this kind of equality in practice with the hippies, is that there are these talking circles about issues at hand, which needs to have like a decision. Like the community makes the decision together with these kind of talking circles. Basically, you like the Indians, like having the token with like a nice stick, and then you give around, and then you listen to the one who is talking with the stick. And then usually there is a focalizer who is like keeping this discipline because discussions can be heated. And I was like loving this idea at first. I was sitting in so many circles, any type of discussion. Like some people wanted to like make fish like in the main circle, which is like a holy thing, and then people are usually vegetarian. But then people also said that we are living as the people live and used to live on the land, and this is like Thailand, so people are fishing, so we should do fishing. And was a big argument in that time. So I was like interested, not really the fish point, but how this is being dealt with, like not like shouting and arguing, but like civilized way. And it was interesting to see that that's like everyone was talking in the circles, and then basically it lasts until no one has to say anything, and then it's a conclusion type of thing. But after like 1 hour 2 hours you are sitting and people are like, you just see the guy that he's so happy that finally he can talk to humans. So it's like 10 minutes monologue about his life. It's like it's not disciplined. Then people leave and then leave and then leave, and then eventually 5 people remains who are really interested about the topic. So it was a lot of waste of time for me, but I still, like for a week I went to these kind of talking circles, and then eventually this was before Destiny, so I was kind of reactive and judgmental back then. But still, my conclusion was that this is complete waste of time. And then play music and
You're breaking up a bit.
okay, I wait. Is it better
It's
now?
good.
Perfect. So it was like in theory sounds so good that everyone is equal and equal rights and everything in the decision making. However, it's more about like if you're like
Feelings.
good with politics, then you are more influential in this kind of uh, thing. So it was interesting to me that you still need skills to be able to communicate and make social decisions,
Yeah.
and that kind of
And
education.
within this, yeah, and within this is how people take advantage of each other, because
Yeah,
if there is someone that's very confident, he will win most likely every argument. And that's why with Destiny community, you don't go on argument, you don't go on debating, you go on what's best for all. And that's your guiding point. Because if you don't have a guiding point of what's best for all, then you're working with feelings. And all you have to do is convince people with feelings and how they feel and how they look at things. And then also you're dealing with people who has different educational backgrounds. You could have someone with a mental disorder, for example, someone with Down syndrome. How do they have a vote? How do they have a voice? How do they argue with you? How do they get to say something and win? You know, it's like you have to look at what does equality mean here. And that's why you have to remove this whole bullshit of how you feel, and you can just convince others. And you have to work on, is it best for all? Does it consider everyone? you know, and then you work with that direction in how can this decision be best for all and not based on who's winning the argument.
Yeah, exactly. And it's pretty cool to see that looking back right now in my entire life, I was always have been preparing to this kind of next level type of community building and participation, because all these kind of experiences I had, I never settled in or settled down to like define myself. Like, I don't define myself as a hippie. I don't define myself as a non-hippie. It's just ridiculous. It's no use. Yet I saw what's working and I saw what's not working, and then let's focus on what's practical. And that's why I really like Earth Haven and the principles with Earth Haven, and that's why I will support until my last breath, because this is who I am.
Yeah, and we want to set examples, not just in community living, but for people in general, to see what can life be. So, you know, kind of a pilot project for the rest of the world.
Exactly.
All right, but Talamon, I do have to check the time.
Yeah.
And we are now on our 1 hour. And
Already.
yeah, that was
Wow.
pretty quick.
You have questions?
I have no more questions, but I do know we can do another hangout.
All right. I'm here, you know, anytime.
Yeah, no, this is amazing. I mean, you have a lot of experience, and I would really like to hear it, to get it sharing out, because there's a lot of people that I see as interested in this. And, you know, let's give them the experiences before they have to experience it themselves, or if they should go and experience it. You know, so we can give people some feedback and just share it. It's educational.
Perfect.
All right, Talamon, so then until next time, thank you very much for the hangout and for your sharing. Truly appreciate it. We will plan and arrange another hangout. So take care. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Gian. Take care. Ciao.
Ciao.